Hello, listeners and YouTube viewers. I am so happy that you are here. It is a fantastic Monday morning, sunny here in Austin, Texas. I am high energy for a Monday, shockingly, and I haven't even had a lot of coffee yet. So this is a good thing. I think it's because my next guest, she automatically just gave me that energy. She popped up literally. She was doing something with her shoe and popped up and it made me giggle. So I'm just thrilled all of you are here and you're just not going to believe her story, her testimony of what she's been through and where she is today. And that's what this community and this Inc. podcast is all about is, there isn't anything we can't go through as humans that we cannot overcome, that we can't be, resilient from. Yes, we have pain and we have hard times and struggle, but that's where the learning and the experience comes in. So I'm already on my soapbox. Good morning, listeners. I love you so much, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever and what time you're listening. Thank you so much for being here. Who am I? I am Maureen Scanlon. I am a master life coach, author, speaker, and Mimi. My most important role is Mimi, I think. But what I do is I help you recognize and elevate your self-worth for your desired life. The whole point of this, of all my books and my coaching and this podcast is to help you understand how powerful and wonderful and amazing you are, because it's amazing. Without self-love, we can't do anything in this life. We get so stuck, and I don't want anybody to be stuck. So with that being said, I'm going to tell you about someone who was definitely in a journey of resilience and purpose. So her story, and it's going to be more impactful when she tells her story, but a long story short, I'll just sum it up, is she started in Moscow, Russia. She was 7. Her father lost his job and turned to alcohol, left her mother, who was financially dependent on him to fend for the family. Hunger was a big factor in her upbringing, and it was, as she says, a constant companion. She had to collect bottles to buy bread and even stole food from classmates. That trauma is, to me, I can't even imagine what that feels like. A lot of us just don't realize how fortunate we are just to have food, just food, the basics of nutrition and sustenance in our bodies. And when a child is deprived of that, my gosh, it does a lot of trauma, and can set that mindset of lack for the rest of their lives. So that is the beginning of her story, and what she does now I absolutely love. And she is an advocate for homeless people, and helping to help fight against hunger. And from her humble beginnings, this is why. But I don't even want to read her bio because she's going to do it more justice than I am. So good morning, Miss Anna. Here we go. Megrelishvili.
Yay, you did a good job. Hi.
Yay. Well, you explained it so well. I'm so happy that you're here, and your story, like I said, I usually will read a bio of someone and be like, oh my gosh, they're doing this. I can't do yours justice. So what we're going to do is jump right into your knee story, which we, as you know, everybody who knows listening to my podcast is, you know, obviously what I've already stated. Your knee story started very, very young, with your father leaving and in the hunger. So let's start off with that. Tell us your story, your impactful, amazing, resilient story.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, now looking back on where I come from and where I am today, I cannot even believe it. And if I was my 7-year-old self transported back and told her, this is where you're going to be, I would have been like, you are joking. But, I feel like one of the listeners right now might be stuck in a situation like this where she feels hopelessness or he feels hopelessness. And I just want you to know that there is a light under after the tunnel and you can overcome it. So my beginning story, like you said, started in Moscow, Russia. I was actually an immigrant there. So my family actually is from Georgia, the country. So it's post-Soviet country, and we lived in Russia until I was about 12. And it was really challenging beyond just my family situation, just politically. Russia at that time was going through war with Chechnya, which caused a lot of aggression toward people who looked like me. For listeners who are just listening and cannot see what I look like, I have dark hair and dark eyes, and that is uncommon. Most of the Russians in Moscow are more blonde, blue-eyed, so you definitely stand out. So that caused a lot of just aggression. Like I had people spit on me as I was a child walking in the street and call me names that I cannot say on this podcast for it to be PG. And so this is shaping who you are as a child, right? Like you're hungry, you're very poorly dressed, malnutrition, you have to steal food, plus everybody is basically just talking down at you. And so I grew up in this environment where I felt like I was nobody. I was ugly, I was unloved, and it was very challenging. Like you said, my father became an alcoholic when he lost his business. That's another story of its own. But in the 90s, mafia was really big in Russia, and so they started controlling a lot of the businesses, and so he that's like a movie of its own, but he lost his business to one of the mafia members in Moscow, and that his identity was tied to it, and he turned to alcohol to deal with it, and then just quickly deteriorated. And you would think that hunger was the worst thing that I experienced, but when he would come back after his alcohol binges, and when I was 8, he actually also began to sexually abuse me as a child on top of everything else. So you can imagine, on top of everything I just mentioned, then basically your family member who's supposed to love you and protect you is the one who hurts you the most. So again, lots and lots of just packed trauma upon trauma upon trauma as you're growing up. And so early on, I made a decision that I am going to be wealthy no matter what. So wealth acquisition became my number one priority because I said, I'm not going to be hungry ever again, and I'm not going to let anybody hurt me again. And so everything that really followed came out of that desire. The reason why I came to the US and what I started doing as my career before the transition to what I'm doing now. So, like you said, trauma really shapes us early on, and in our decision making. And until you really go through just a lot of the healing process, which I've done a lot of, then you stay, in stuck in that trauma. And I hope that my story today will inspire some of you to just have the courage to change your circumstances, and seek the healing that you need.
Wow. I mean, just amazing, amazing. I I'm like I'm speechless, which is very rare for me to be speechless. I mean, as you were speaking of all those things were happening in my mind as a coach, of course, and with all my psychology background, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, abandonment, lack of belonging, lack mentality, undeserving, oh man, lack of security, my gosh, that does so much in that age. At that age, that's the formidable years. And to see such a beautiful, healed, amazing woman in front of me, I admire that because there's a lot of people with that story or similar stories who went down different paths and lost that hope and used addictions as escapism, which is completely understandable, very common for trauma. But something that I wrote down, you'll see me taking notes when I look down. I love these words, and listeners, this is something I've talked about in the past about choices. And when you are in a victim mentality, you don't believe you have a choice. And what I loved is three words that Anna just said, I made a decision. Made a decision. So what you did was you planted this seed in the midst of all you were going through that manifested later and formed where you were going and what you were going to do. That's a testament to your character, to your resilience, to your determination to be successful. So I love that so much. Now, I do know that you are head of a Christian professional network, and I want to know how much the spirituality part of it, your belief system came into helping you in your healing process.
Well, you would be surprised to know that I actually was atheist majority of my life. So God intervened only less than 5 years ago into my life. And I became a Christian less than 4 years ago. So this is relatively new. So during my upbringing, I actually resented the idea of God because I felt like if there is God who allowed for all these horrible things to happen to me as a child, then I want nothing to do with this God. And so God was never present in our lives, in the life of my family. Um, the in my country, there is what's called a cultural Christianity. So 90% of population, when surveyed, say that they're Orthodox Christians. Without really understanding, many of them don't understand what that means. They don't read the Bible. They don't necessarily go to church, but they say that they're Christians. So my family was kind of like that. They baptized me when I was a child, and so I was a Christian, but that really didn't mean anything for my family. Hindsight, looking back, that desire to change my circumstances actually came from my first encounter with God, but I didn't know it was my encounter with God back then. So let me tell you what happened. I was about 13 and I was in the schoolyard during the break between classes. And as you know, one of the side effects of a lot of trauma is oftentimes we don't have a lot of memories from our childhood because our brain protects us from that. So I have that. So I don't have a lot of very vivid memories from my childhood. But this particular memory is super clear, like it was yesterday. So I can remember everything. So it's a very, very impactful moment in my life. But it felt like suddenly everything stopped. So almost like the time stood still kind of moment. And I heard this voice inside of me. And back then I thought it was me talking to myself. But there was one message that I said in one sentence, and it was, "You are meant for more than this life." And back then, I thought it was me talking to myself. But as you can imagine, with all the upbringing that I had, why would a child have this kind of confidence when everything around her is telling her she's nothing? My family, my grandparents used to tell me that my only future is to get married and have babies at age 16. So everybody around me and all the circumstances basically telling me I'm nothing. And suddenly there's this message that I receive that says, "You are meant for more than this life." And I truly believe this was the first time that God spoke to me, and I didn't know it then. And I like to bring that story because I was angry and resented the idea of God at that point, but He still loved me and He still intervened in my life because that was the moment that really changed the trajectory of everything moving forward. It was almost like suddenly I had this almost obsessive idea of getting out of my circumstances no matter what. So back then in Eastern Europe, in my little hometown where I grew up, there were only really two pathways to get out of poverty, especially for women. One was to marry up somebody rich, which I looked around and saw only dysfunctional marriages around me. And I said, that is not the route I want to take. Or um, it was through education. My family was very poor, so everything that I had to accomplish had to go through lots of studying, getting scholarships. And so the first time I came to the US, actually, I came on a scholarship funded by the State Department, and it's called Future Leaders Exchange Program. And so they brought in people from Eastern Europe to the US to live with American family for a year and then bring that knowledge and skill set back to their country. And so when I came to the US for the first time, I was actually 16 years old. And I got an incredible host family. They were much older. They were close to their retirement age. I was their 13th exchange student. They were a Christian family. And they were the first time I actually saw what a healthy, loving family looks like and what it means when a woman has a voice and is not being abused all the time and actually is cared for and has the equal rights. And back then, I thought, this is it. To me, the United States of America was the best country in the world. And I was willing to do anything to come back because I said, here's a woman, you can do whatever you want as far as achieving of your career and building your future. And so when I went back to Georgia because of my visa requirement, I knew I had to come back. And I knew the only way for me to come back was to get a full scholarship to go to college. Well, that's very, very rare, especially for international students. But I applied to just one college and I got in and I got full scholarship and everything paid for. And that's how I actually immigrated in the United States when I was 20.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it just shows who you are. It's like you just don't let anything stop you. You find a way. And I love that. And listeners, isn't that cool to think you can apply that to your life? She finds cracks in the don'ts or the can'ts or the impossibles. She finds the possibles, the cans, and I'm going to do this thing. I love that, especially when all the odds are against you. And I'm so grateful for that host family of yours. And we do the same here. There, it's exchange students who go to other countries and stuff. And I think personally, traveling is the most important thing we could do in this lifetime. I think to learn about people that have a different culture, different belief system, different financial situations. I just think we need to travel, and it gives you an appreciation for what you have, for how lucky and fortunate you are in the United States, as you said. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. The Orthodox Christian thing is interesting, and I don't want to get too much into religion, but I'm going to say this because we are such an open-minded podcast and everyone is welcome here. So whether you are spiritual, you believe in organized religion or whatever the situation, to me, if you find something that makes you feel you belong and you feel accepted and you don't feel judged or criticized or harmed in any way, I'm all about it. So interestingly enough, I sort of went from I had Christianity. I grew up without any religion or spiritualism. My parents did not instill any of that. They wanted us to make up our mind. I went into my own in my adulthood into Christianity, and then I have now evolved more into spirituality, where really my religion is compassion and love for everybody. That's my religion. But my son has recently joined a church, and he's been there for 8 months. He's been part of the church for 8 months. He went on this um, trip to San Diego where he was sharing the word of God. It's Christian. What I love about this is he is a different young man now, and we had a big conversation last night, and I just heard peace. And I think, do you feel like when there wasn't anything else, you needed this peace, this feeling of there may not be anything in this world for me, but at least I know source, God, whatever you want to call it, loves me and I'm accepted and I'm loved. And doesn't that really form our empowerment and our self-esteem to do what you did, get a full scholarship and come to a country that you've never, well, that you lived in when you were 16? What do you think about what would be something for someone who is struggling and feels super lost and has no belonging and doesn't feel accepted? What are the first steps for them to find that type of spiritualism?
Well, I think first step is leaving a crack to for God to walk into your life, right? Just even having an acceptance that there is a possibility for you to have a relationship with God. I know that a lot of people have been hurt by religious institutions in the past, but I always say these are people, and we are all broken in the end. And what I want for each of us is not necessarily have this obligation to go to church, but more have a relationship with God, or high power, whatever you call. But, there is, divine energy, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And I am Christian, so I'm going to use the words that based on my faith, but I have a relationship with God now. I did not have before. And when you don't have that relationship, it leaves a hole in your heart. And we don't understand that the hole is caused by that lack of relationship. And so we're trying to fill it with other things. So it can be variety of things. It could be workaholic, right? Working all the time, trying to acquire things. It could be going out all the time, going on fancy vacations. It could be addiction or watching TV and escaping, but basically you're trying to fill this hole with something external that only gives you short-term benefits, like that dopamine hit here and there. But once you truly establish this relationship, it really heals you. It also gives you more inside perspective on who you are and makes you a better person and brings you that longevity of joy and peace that we're all looking toward. So I'll give you an example of just one thing that happened with me when I became a Christian, which again, it was very recent. I used to send money back home. So when I came to the US, I obviously had to support not just myself, but there is a cultural expectation, and that happens not just with Eastern Europe, it happens a lot with other countries as well, where if you come to the United States and you have a better life, you're expected to pay for everybody back home. So I was paying not just for myself, but for my mother and my brother, who were young, capable adults who were able to work, but they didn't, because why would they when you have money just showing up in your bank account, right? So back then, before I knew God, I felt so good about myself. I was like, I'm such a good daughter because I'm sending all this money and I'm supporting my family. And when I would share with people, like, wow, you are such a great person for supporting your family. So this is the dynamic that's happening, right? And I truly believe in that moment, I'm a good person for doing it. Well, fast forward to me now knowing God, doing a lot of self-reflection, changing myself for the better and growing and healing. Well, I have this self-reflection on the situation, and I realize that I do this not of the kindness of my heart. I do it to quiet my guilt.
Ah,
I felt guilty the entire time that I have a better life than my family, where I shouldn't feel this way, right? Like I experienced a lot of trauma. I escaped it. I started over in this country, but yet I'm quieting my guilt and I'm enabling two able adults who are capable of working to be completely reliant on me. And so that really reshaped that whole behavior. I actually stopped supporting them, and I said, you need to go get jobs. And so that caused a lot of conflict. So I don't have a relationship with my family today because of I stopped enabling them and sending all the money. But also, I stopped doing it out of quieting the guilt and not for the right reasons. None of this would have happened if I didn't have the relationship with God and started growing in my faith.
I I love that so much. I gave to avoid guilt. How many of us are people pleasers that do that? I think that is such a common, it's a common dynamic, but especially like you said, culturally, wow, I know, like a lot of Hispanic cultures, you're expected, the whole family is expected to give to one another and take care of one another. I know there's some Indian is that's a very common also expectation. And like you said, I'm giving out of obligation because you expect me to do it, and I need that external validation that I'm a good person. I think that is truly, if we are uncovering anything that we're going to take away, listeners, is that look at your life. Are you giving to avoid guilt? Are you doing things to get that external validation? I know when I was a very codependent person, before I had self-love, I did so much to try to earn people's love and people's admiration and people's, my parents. I want them to be proud of me. I'll give anything to make them proud of me. And I love that you said when I finally stopped, I stopped enabling them. I made them do it. And we can relate this to all relationships. If they are toxic, and yes, sometimes we have to cut ties with them. I have people close to me that I do not speak to, that I've had to cut ties because the relationship was based on what I could give them. And that is so similar to your mom and your brother. And we have to evaluate that. And it brings me back to what God said to you that day. You were meant for more than this life. And we have to take back our power, guys. Take back that ability to say, I don't have to be treated this way. I'm allowed to say no. It's those boundaries that are so hard for all of us to put down when it comes to long-term relationships, whether it's friendships or whatever, and then those blood relationships, because you're always told, but that's your family, you have to put up with that, or that's your mother, how could you do that, that's your mother, why would you. We have to be so strong, and you're so strong in doing that, and it isn't until you had faith and self-love and self-respect that you could do that, right?
And you make a really great point, and I think that is a very, very common response for women who experience trauma, is to think that we're only worthy of love if we bring something to the table or we do something for somebody, and not because we're deserving of love for who we are as a human being. And I really didn't experience that until I came into relationship with God and I understood how much He loves us, and that we're made in His image, and I just really experienced that unconditional love for the first time. But boundaries are not easy to set, especially family members. Um, there is this, I wish I could remember the name of the psychologist who wrote this, but basically, when we have family members, we learn steps of the dance and we do this dance over and over and over again. And when you're a person who begins the healing process, suddenly you're starting to dance with the different steps. Well, the person from your family is going to have a reaction of anger, and they're going to try to pull you back to the dance steps that they know. And so you have to be strong at that point to resist and stay on the course of healing, of establishing boundaries. Otherwise, you're going to get pulled back into the same dance routine. And then, if you are strong, your family member has two choices to make, right? They can either stay angry and continue try to pull you back in the same dance routine, or they can learn the new dance steps with you and try to evolve and build a new relationship with you. And so I've tried, it was really difficult. Imagine being a woman who basically, when people ask you about my parents, I say that I don't have a relationship with my parents. I cut my father off when I moved to the US for obvious reasons. He was sexually abusing me. So I don't think he deserves my relationship. He deserves for me to not forget or justify his behavior, but forgive for my sake so that I
Yeah.
don't carry that anger and I don't carry that resentment or brokenness because
Mhm.
of his action. And then I have a mother who cuts me off because I stop financially supporting her, perpetuating the story of, oh, I can only be loved for things that I bring to the table from my own mother.
Yeah.
And, it was very difficult. And I've tried really hard to reconcile. But the thing is, my mother keeps wanting me to go back to who I was before. And I cannot do that. I've evolved. I understand we had very unhealthy psychological dynamic where we flipped roles and I became a parent and she became a child in our relationship. And that also commonly happens between child and parent relationships. But that is not okay. She's still the parent. I'm the child.
Yeah.
And if she wants a relationship with me, she has to learn these new dynamics and healthy relationship rather than codependency.
Oh, so well said. I love the dance analogy. I've never heard that, and I am certainly going to research
I'm not
that.
taking credit for it. So this is somewhere I read. So it is not my words, but I really, really like that analogy.
I do too. I'm going to research that. That's fantastic. It's something I'll definitely use in my practice. I always say this with my clients. When you change, other people have no choice but to change. Now, that being said, I don't mean that they're going to change and they're going to evolve and they're going to elevate and be better people. No, they're going to have to change in the way that if they don't accept who you are now and accept the boundaries that you set down, then the change is they don't get a relationship with you or the relationships gets worse for them. And our only job is to say, is this helping me or is this harming me? If
Mhm.
this relationship is harming me, I have to move away from it. But I think you're so right. Staying in that dance is that's not why we're here.
Mhm.
We were not meant to come here as children and then, get to 18 and then never change again. The whole point was keep moving. However, I do believe that there are some people that come in this life and they don't change, but they help others change. Does that make sense? Like
Right.
you think, well, it'd be great if they lived their best life and they kept evolving and they were better, like your mother accepting you and being like, oh my gosh, we're so proud of you and I'm working or whatever. You would give more gracefully if it wasn't expected of you to be loved than than being hated for not giving it to you, to her. That's
Yeah. And one thing I tell people, I stopped giving help unless people ask for it. And hear me out here. It's very, very important because that entire time for years, I was sending money to my mother. Once I cut it off and, this conflict aroused, do you know what my mother said? She said, well, I never asked you for any money.
oh.
Technically, that is true. She never actually asked for the money. I was sending it, or she would say things like, oh, I only have $200 left in my bank account. So she technically never asked for it. I sent it. And that was such a hard lesson and hurtful lesson to learn. But moving forward, I do not offer help unless I'm asked, because later on, a person, if something goes wrong, they're going to turn it against you and they're going to say, well, I never asked for your help. So,
Ooh, ooh, I'm triggered. I'm so triggered because that's me. I don't ask anybody for anything. And I have the most wonderful husband. He's like, ask me anything that you need me to do. And I'm like, nope, I'll do it myself. I got it. I'll do this. And he'll be like, no, now he knows I'm not going to ask him. He's just going to do it. But your mother knew this is a very passive aggressive thing that she did. I only have $200. Okay, it's implied you need to
Exactly.
take care of me, my child, because you've always been taking care of me, my child.
That is exactly right.
And passive aggressive of, I'm not going to directly come out and ask you because then you'll throw it back in my face. If you've ever had people throw things back in your face, I mean, everybody knows my story of a lot of very terrible narcissistic past relationships, and they would throw that back. Well, remember when I did this for you and I did this for you? Meanwhile, I've supported these unemployed
Mhm.
people and supported the bills and did all this, but the one little tiny thing they would do for me would get thrown back in my face. Well, that definitely changes you. And I love that you said I'm not helping unless someone asks. Well, that has a double edged, it's a double-edged sword because if people are like, if you and I are friends and I needed something, I would never ask you. I would never, never, never ask you because I've had that trauma of asking for it. Even though, you would know, oh, I need to help her. I'm one of these now, like with my friends, I never want anything in return. I never give anything expecting anything in return. That was the difference between you and I and our upbringing was
Mhm.
we every time something was given to us, it was expected to have something in return, and vice versa for us. Giving meant we would finally get the love that we were seeking. So
Right.
that's a dynamic of its own, right?
It is. And I was exactly like you. So let's dive into a little bit more. And I want to challenge you on something. So I used to think exactly like you because we've been burned where, something has been, like you said, narcissistic personalities have thrown into your face, which is unhealthy, but that has shaped your current attitude toward asking for help. And I was exactly like that until I got to the point where I actually quit my corporate job in, let's see, it was February of 2022. And at that time, I actually was the first time that I allowed people to help me with things like one of my girlfriends, was helping me sell my condo at, completely like friend rate instead of 3%. Somebody allowed me to store my stuff in their house. In the past, I would have not allowed it to happen because I would have been like, no, I don't want to owe them anything. But listen to what we're depriving of our friends. If I would have not allowed them to help during that time, this is an opportunity for them to step in and be there for us because I know just from who you are, just from the short period of time, that you're a giver. You're constantly helping people, but you're not giving that same opportunity for them to step in. And that gives more depth to your friendship because they're there when you need them and you're allowing them to step in and grow your relationship that way. And so that challenged my whole thought process. And so now I'm able to ask people for help. And instead of just doing, I ask people, do you need my help? And
Mm.
if they say yes, then I don't just do things, but you ask them, can I help you in this situation? Because you need to basically put that responsibility of asking for help so that that healthy dynamic exists. So I would challenge you in your future to allow your friends to step in and be there for you because that does provide that next level depth in relationship when you have this kind of relationship with each other.
Absolutely, complete transparency. It's only my husband that gets the sometimes past stuff that pops up where I'm like, I can do it myself. Mainly if and this is where my husband and I we always butt heads. Okay, he's an engineer. He's a very logistical man, logic, and I'm very, of course, emotional. And we always have different ideas when it comes to projects. And I'm
Mm,
a creative, so I can like make anything work. I can like glue nuts and bolts together and make a giraffe out of it. Okay, just I'm being completely
yeah.
sarcastic here. But every time I ask my husband if we can do something, he'll say, "Well, what do you want?" And I'll say, "Well, I want this and this and this." And he always says, "Well, I don't think that's going to work." And it triggers me because I'm like, you're not trying to help me. Like, we can make it work. And that's when I shut down and I do the whole I can do it myself flight process.
Gotcha.
But what you're saying, I have depth of relationships now because how I have evolved is I've changed the circle that I have. So the people that I ask for help, I trust. I know they're not going to throw it back in my face.
Yep.
I know these people unconditionally will be there for me no matter what. So that I think is the key. I'm not going to just go ask anybody. And there's people in my past that I would never go back and ask, even relatives or whatever.
Right.
So that's the key is not even just the asking, but who are we asking? And my favorite thing to say, where you say, can I help you? My favorite thing to say is, how may I help? And that
Hmm.
way they don't feel like they're asking me. I'll just say, what is your plan or what's the problem we can solve? And that way they don't feel so much like they're asking me. It's more like we're a
Hmm.
team solving something together.
Exactly.
So I think
Yeah.
definitely that's the important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, the point is the dynamic should never be you just give people without them participating in the decision making. So I think we're definitely on the same page here. And I always laugh because I think God brings us husbands and wives who are there to challenge us and let us grow. And sounds like with you and your husband, that's exactly the dynamic.
Everybody around that knows us, everybody, first of all, everybody is like, oh my gosh, hashtag marriage goals because they love my husband and I relationship, and I do too. It's just, we are literally male, female versions of one another, yet we have these significant differences that challenge one another. But it's so funny because my best friend, she'll say, I love how you guys argue. And it's because it's never serious, it's never dramatic. And coming from a background of being abused by someone in anger, really, it scared me, physically abused and emotionally abused. And now to have the freedom to be able to disagree with a partner, and it is funny. We just speak our minds, and then literally, you know, 30 minutes later, actually, before we even leave the conversation, my husband will say, can I have a kiss? Like, even if we didn't resolve anything, and I'm like, "Ugh, fine. It's
Exactly.
beautiful to find that kind of relationship. It's one of the reasons my book, is, my dog is my relationship coach, because how forgiving are dogs? I mean, dogs just love you no matter what. They don't hold grudges. They're just there for you, and they don't, there's no dissension ever with a dog. They're not mad at you. I mean, they might go off, pout or something, but they'll always come back. So
Right.
I love this conversation, and I could do this all day long, but we are running out of time. So I want to know, what are you doing today? What is your, as you said, you quit corporate. So what are you doing today that is your passion and purpose?
Yeah, so when I quit my corporate job, I quit it with the purpose of finding my happiness and purpose in work. Came to the US and built corporate career with really just one goal is making money. And I never slowed down to really ask myself, what would make me happy and what talents God has given me that I can use to actually make this world a little bit better place after I leave. And so it can be a podcast of its own because I went on this year-long sabbatical and it was just this incredible experiences. But basically toward the end of it, I started going on these silent retreats to different monasteries. And during my first silent retreat, that's when I wrote my book, Finding Courage to Change, where I wrote about everything that happened in my childhood and the healing process. And then during my second silent retreat is when I received really a divine download, almost like a vision of everything that I'm doing today. So it came like a business plan, really overwhelming because basically I received a vision that I'm meant to solve homelessness in the United States. And as you can imagine, at that point, I was like, I'm nobody. I have no money. I have no power, no connections. I don't even have Christian friends. How am I supposed to do this? But then you slow down and you realize, okay, if God is asking you to do something, that means he has equipped you. And maybe all the experiences that I've had in my past has prepared me to have this. And that's exactly what happened. Because of my upbringing, it gave me a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding of people's psychology as they're going through really difficult times, because it's a survival mode. It is not the same as what you and I experience today. It's completely different. And second, my business and sales degrees has allowed me to really build the business and the nonprofit. So now, under Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, we have a for-profit, which is the networking organization for business professionals. So think of it like a chamber of commerce with lots of connectivity, educational elements, and people can join as members. And then we have a nonprofit, and the nonprofit has mentorship program for the homeless. So we use the networking side to recruit the mentors, and then we deploy them into our nonprofit, who then we pair them with the homeless in Atlanta. So we started this year with the nonprofit, and have partnered with existing shelters and organizations. And our goal is really to start opening new chapters. So definitely Austin, Texas is on the roadmap for the next 5 years. We're starting a chapter, hopefully in Tampa this summer. And the goal is to start the networking and then for the foundation to follow, and for us to just build this national mentorship program for the homeless so they can really have friendships that inspire them to change their circumstances.
Oh, wow. Look at you. I mean, you just planted that seed. I made a decision. And here it is. Here it just kept growing and growing. And yeah, doubts come in. It's just normal for us to doubt. We've never done something before. So it's always going to be this, can I do this thing? But pushing
Right.
through it like you, Anna, and I've now embraced things that make me nervous or scared, or I now sort of embrace it because I know if I do this thing that makes me nervous, there's change on the other side of it, you know?
Exactly.
And I love that you're doing this. Oh my God. If you come to Austin, you had better let me know. And whatever I can do to help, do some coaching or whatever I can do to help with your cause. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to read your book, and I need a copy of that. I love that about all of my guests, that they're all authors like myself, and big thing, reviews. So listeners, make sure you go Finding Courage to Change on Amazon and make sure you do those reviews, and then look up her nonprofit. And as you can see, but if you're on YouTube, you can see behind us, her website is cpnworldwide.com. And that's where you can find both the profit and the nonprofit information, right?
Yes.
Fan freaking tastic. Well, oh my God, I enjoyed you so much. I enjoyed you so much. Now, I do end these with something, a little lighter and a little more
Yep.
fun.
Yep.
Um, your story is so amazing. Um, how about this one? I'm gonna give you, how about number 10 of my segments? Peeve, don't. That's the name of it. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, that's okay. My biggest pet peeve is really, really cheap people. So, and let me, there's a story behind it. My father was the cheapest man I have ever met. Like, it was like, guys, my father, because he was so cheap, when I needed my tonsils removed, didn't want to take me to the hospital. He took me to literally like doctors, which I think he was really a butcher, house to save money on the surgery. Okay. That's the level of cheapness that I experienced. So now, I can't have friends who are like, when you get a check and they're like, well, I only ate this. And like, Like split the bill.
Oh my God. Now there's frugal, like so for instance, everybody knows I'm a reseller and I do that because I do it for the good of the planet. I do it because
That's different.
we are wasteful people, a wasteful country, and I want this earth to be good for my grandchildren and great grandchildren. But I'm with you. There was a show on I want to say TLC and I think it was called Cheapskates or something. I would watch it and I would get so mad. I would be like, "Are you kidding me?" They would recycle their shower water
Yeah,
and
that's my biggest nightmare.
oh God, I am so with you on that. And when it comes to like being generous, I when I'm giving, I'm totally like that. But like for myself, I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm not going to buy myself
Right.
a $200 pair of shoes. That's ridiculous. But oh my God, yeah, cheap when it comes
Same.
to
Yeah.
necessities and quality of life. Like, what
Or
are
like
you
health of your child, you know? Like,
yeah, that's kind of at the top. That's kind of at the top of where you
yeah,
spend money. Like, oh my God,
yeah.
that was perfect. I knew that would be a good one for you. Thank you, my love. Hang in with me. And we'll talk off air. But listeners, I hope you enjoyed Anna as much as I did. You know, I always bring you the absolute best guests, and I don't know how you could ever listen to her story and see where she is and say that you can't do that because if anyone gives you that hope and that inspiration, it's Anna. I mean, from a different country, from being, homeless, to being this amazingly successful and giving businesswoman. She's just absolutely the epiphany of who we want to be. We want to be this well-rounded, giving, knowledgeable, helpful, purposeful, loving person. And compassion needs to be at the very top. So thank you for being here, my listeners. Don't forget to review and subscribe as always. Let's see what other housekeeping stuff. You know where to find me. I do relationship coaching, dating coaching, self-esteem, self-love, self-confidence coaching. And my books are there. My dog is more enlightened than I am, and my dog is my relationship coach. And my children's book, My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me, teaching our children self-love and self-care. So I have number 2 children's book coming out soon. It's in the process of being illustrated. So I love you all. Don't forget the doggy boutique that we have, healthy treats I make in my very own kitchen, as well as apparel and fun stuff. So, my dog is everything.net. And other than that, just go to lifecoachmaureen.com. Everything about me is there. Anything, comments, you want to be a guest, please reach out. And if you need to contact any of the guests, I'll make sure to put you in contact with them as well to buy their books or utilize their businesses or coaching, all that fun stuff. So until next week, my friends, I love you so much. Take care of you. Take care of each other. Most of all, please take care of my little furry babies out there. And let's make sure that we adopt and we do not shop. There are forever friends waiting who are homeless and they're in shelters and they want a forever home, just like what Anna is doing. Our little furry babies need a forever home as well. So let's take care of our homeless babies too. So I love you all. Until next week, take care. Mwah!